Silent on Pakistan, she lectured India.
Under Modi and the BJP government, all of these mutual values have been threatened.
Hateful hypocrite faces the heat. Wined and dined by Pakistan, she bashed India.
Resolution 9, this conflict is a tragedy.
Anti-India beta removed from US panel.
My leadership and voice will not be diminished if I am not on this committee for one term.
Big fat blow to Ilhan Omar. That's our top focus on India First.
So radical Islamist terror backer Ilhan Omar was ousted from the US Congress Committee on Foreign Affairs. She played the Muslim card, she played the immigrant card, she played the African card, but the fact remains she has been in the eye of a storm for her radical anti-Jewish and anti-India stance. Incidentally, she travelled to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on a so-called private visit. Was this visit organized by or at the behest of Pakistan's notorious spy agency, the ISI? And was she invited for her rabid anti-India stance, frankly ignoring the treatment of Muslims and minorities and the ground realities in Pakistan? I'm Gaurav Sawant. We will get you more on her ouster and why some are arguing it's actually good riddance even if it's for one term. But first, as always, the headlines. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath's mega exclusive on India Today slams the cancel culture on films, warns there is no place for Talibani culture in Uttar Pradesh.
तालिबानी अब संस्कृति यूपी जैसे राज्य के अंदर नहीं चल सकती है। यूपी है, भारत का हृदय स्थल है और यूपी की तर्ज पर आगे बढ़ेगा।
Adani Group loses over $120 billion in 7 trading days, but Adani Enterprises and port stocks recover a bit. Fitch rating says no immediate impact on the group of the Hindenburg report. Massive uproar in Parliament over the Adani mess. Opposition adamant on its demand for a JPC investigation. Both houses adjourned till Monday after ruckus. Supreme Court issues notice to the centre over BBC film controversy, asks the centre to reply within 3 weeks. Supreme Court to hear case again in April. Massive crackdown in Assam, over 1,800 arrests made in child marriage cases. Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma says zero tolerance over crime against women. Democrat Ilhan Omar, a third-time House member, known for her anti-Semitic and anti-India stance, was removed from the powerful Foreign Affairs Committee. The US House of Representatives Republicans on Thursday ousted her over her past anti-Semitic remarks. But Ilhan Omar suggested she was being removed because she's a Muslim, she's a woman, and she's someone who's come from Africa as a refugee to the United States of America.
Ilhan Omar, US Congresswoman from Minnesota, known in the subcontinent for her anti-India rhetoric, has just been ousted from a high-profile American Foreign Affairs Committee. The Republicans, who enjoy a slender majority in the US House of Representatives, on Thursday won a bitterly fought vote to drop Ilhan Omar from the panel over her past remarks, widely condemned as anti-Semitic. The deeply divided House voted 218 to 211 along party lines to remove the Democratic Party member from the Foreign Affairs Committee.
On this vote, the ayes are 218, the nays are 211.
Ilhan Omar's political rival cited her 2019 tweet alleging Republican support of Israel was fueled by donations from a pro-Israeli lobby group to push her out. She had later apologized for the tweet that was condemned by her party colleagues as well. Moments before her expulsion, a defiant Ilhan said her voice will only get louder and stronger.
This conflict is a tragedy. Every rocket and bomb that targets civilians is a war crime. And I wish we as a nation treated that pain equally. But right now we are not. And instead of condemning blatant crimes against humanity and human rights abuses, many members of Congress have instead fallen back on a blanketed statement.
The controversial Congresswoman's ouster is viewed by the Democrats as revenge for their voting in 2021 to remove two far-right Republicans.
When you have a member of the Republican caucus who have talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened.
Today's resolution, as it relates to Representative Omar, details 6 statements she made as a sitting member of Congress that under the totality of the circumstances disqualify her from serving on the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, however, claimed that her removal was not an act of revenge.
It's not right. We were right in our action, and she can serve on other committees. But it puts America in jeopardy, and I'm not going to do that under my watch. And it's fair in the process, unlike them.
Ilhan Omar has made several controversial comments in the past, even pushing a resolution to designate India a country of concern. She had visited Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in 2022, where she promised to mainstream Pakistan's concerns with India. Indian journalist Aarti Tikku, who was shut down by Ilhan Omar when she raised questions regarding the persecution of Kashmiri Hindus during congressional hearings in 2019, has hailed the ouster.
Finally, the truth has prevailed, and I'm really glad that Republicans have shown her the boot from the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee. Ilhan Omar is fundamentally a bigot, an Islamist, and a jihadist who stands by Pakistan's cross-border terrorism.
Ilhan Omar, who arrived in the United States as a refugee from Somalia, is the only African-born member of the U.S. Congress and one of the only Muslim women in the House. Bureau Report, India Today.
Ilhan Omar has actually been very openly anti-India. Some have argued that the refugee from Somalia in the United States of America was openly backing radical Islamists, including the regime of Pakistan. Her personal visit to Pakistan raised several eyebrows. Was it arranged at the behest of Pakistan's notorious spy agency, the ISI? In April 2022, she took on the Biden administration. She's a Democrat. She took on the Biden administration, raising questions about Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US relationship with India. But this wasn't a one-off. In October 2019, she had targeted India on Kashmir and Assam. In fact, Indian Americans say that she had in 2019 voted against a bill that could have cut the waiting time for Indians to get a green card in the United States of America. So once, it may be happenstance; twice, it may be coincidence. As Ian Fleming wrote in Goldfinger, third time, it's clearly enemy action.
And the part of the reason I asked and the part of the reason I emphasized the context of the larger PGP project is because I think the situation in Assam is as bad as Kashmir, if not worse. And I think in both cases, the impunity we have seen for crimes against Muslims under the PJP was warming for such worse things to come. In Assam, almost 2 million people are being asked to affirmably approve their citizenship. As my colleague and the chairman said, there have been official statements to the effect that no Buddhist, Christian, Sikh, or Jain refugees need to worry about their status. And so this is a clear anti-Muslim program. And I'm sure you've seen the same reports that the Indian government is starting to build camps in Assam, presumably to hold those who are unable to prove their citizenship. This is how the Rohingya genocide started. At what point do we no longer share values with India? Are we waiting for the Muslims in Assam to be put in those camps? What about Modi in India? How are we promoting a free and open region by supporting Modi? So I ask you, why has the Biden administration been so reluctant to criticize Modi's government on human rights? I ask the same question. What will it take? How much does the Modi administration have to criminalize the act of being Muslim in India for us to say something? And I ask you again, what will it take for us to outwardly criticize the actions that the Modi administration is taking against its Muslim minorities in India? Because when we remain silent and the situation gets out of control in the way that it did with the Rohingyas, we all of a sudden show our interest in whatever genocide that's taking place. But we have an opportunity now to lead and make sure that there is a deterrence in the actions that they are taking as our partners.
So this is how radical Islamists play the Muslim card, the victim card, based on half-truths and absolute lies. And that is where that ecosystem in our country, it builds rhetoric, and overseas it gets amplified. But let's try and make sense of these developments. Joining me from the United States is Puneet Ahluwalia. He is a political and business strategist. He is also the former Republican candidate to be the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Joining me on India Today is also my colleague Shiv Arur, who's been tracking the story very closely. But Puneet Ahluwalia, I want to begin by asking you, sir. Ilhan Omar has indicated that she has been targeted because she's Muslim, she's from Africa, and that she's a woman. Is that why she was ousted from the Foreign Affairs Committee, sir?
It's a reckless leadership that has ousted her. It's an important committee. It's important for our foreign affairs, foreign relations, important allies and friends around the world. And it is her actions, and she's not been doing this once or twice. She's been carrying this on for the longest time. Not only she targeted the Israeli nation, she's also targeted India and other countries. And apparently at the same time, she has started to, play the race card, the women card, the Africa card. And I think it is her action which has kicked her off and booted her off this important committee. And at the same time, I must say that Kevin McCarthy has come in as very strong and creating a certain standard of leadership from members of Congress to really, because it's an important position. It's a position of responsibility. And your actions, your words is how we are defined all over the world, especially the American people who have lost faith in the members of Congress. So I think it's a very bold step and a good step, and I'm glad she's off the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Okay. Before I bring in Shiv Arur, one quick question. Democrats say this is targeting of free speech. You are targeting somebody who may have an opinion which is different from the Republicans. Ilhan Omar had, after all, apologized for her anti-Israel comments. She's a refugee. She came from outside. She perhaps didn't know the American way then.
Well, she came in here and she knows it very well. And I think these are tantrums and crocodile tears. I know most of the people don't believe what she's saying, and her language and her statements don't match her actions. So I'm glad she's off. And let me tell you very importantly, yes, we have free speech, but that is also important that when you are an elected leader, there's far more responsibility. And even more important, when you are a refugee or you are an immigrant to this great nation, you have to act responsibly. At the same time, I think she, as I said, reckless leadership got her booted off.
Okay, it was her recklessness. Stay with me for a moment. Shiv, there are some who say, especially in India, good riddance. Are they being too harsh on someone who says she's being targeted because she's a Muslim woman and an immigrant from Africa, perhaps playing the Muslim victim card, the woman card, and the immigrant from Africa card?
Look, Gaurav, let's be very frank. What has happened with Ilhan Omar is definitely a setback to her. It's definitely embarrassing for her, but it is by no means something that's going to, deplatform her, because that certainly doesn't happen, to people like her. She's played all manner of victim card in the last 48 hours since this happened, but the simple fact of the matter is most people view this as a tiny pause before she gets back to doing what she's doing. As we've, reported here on India Today, Ilhan Omar is one of the biggest political hypocrites, in a political firmament that's filled with hypocrites. Sometimes you need to be a hypocrite to be a politician, and Ilhan Omar in many ways typifies that. The fact that she went to Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, last April, calling it a personal visit, something that the Indian government had reacted to, and then 2 months later, after going back to the US, pushing a resolution against India on the issue of religious freedom, is something that was so completely blatant and brazen. I don't think anything more needed to be said by India as far as Ilhan Omar is concerned. The fact that she's been taken off the House Committee on Foreign Affairs is a big deal, because as you and I both know, this isn't just some a slapdash political committee like the many committees we have here in India and elsewhere in the world. This is a real committee that actually has a bearing on national security, foreign policy, war procedures, deployment of the military on foreign soil, etc. And therefore, her not being on it is a definite setback as far as she's concerned. But like I said, the so-called fake left liberal ecosystem around the world, in the United States especially, will ensure that this is just a minor blip in an otherwise, long campaign against what she sees are the powers that be. So you can expect to hear from Ilhan Omar very soon, perhaps about India as well.
Oh, absolutely. You very correctly point out that there is a well-oiled ecosystem. They start something here and then it gets amplified overseas, bringing bad name to India. Is that perhaps their entire campaign is all about? Shiv, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. I have breaking news coming in from the United States of America. We are now being told that the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has decided to postpone his visit to China. This visit was expected to start on Friday, and this visit was cancelled after a Chinese spy balloon was tracked flying across continental United States of America. And there you see images of that balloon. Now this comes after this Chinese spy balloon was reported flying over United States of America. The US Air Force had its fighter jets ready. They could have shot it out of the sky. But US President Joe Biden, according to reports coming from the United States, he was advised against shooting this down because of the fear of debris falling on people. So the United States took custody of this balloon when it entered US airspace, observed it, and then they said that they had very high confidence that this was a Chinese extreme high altitude balloon. It was flying over some very sensitive sites in the United States of America to collect information. China, of course, claims that the balloon seen over US airspace is some kind of a civilian airship used for research that actually blew off course. China has expressed regret. Domes and minarets of a mosque of Pakistan's minority Ahmadiyya community in Karachi have been targeted. Pakistan continues with its persecution of minorities. We'll show you images. Look at those images there. These are apparently, that is what initial reports seem to indicate, Sunni Muslims climbed atop an Ahmadi masjid in the Sadr area of Karachi and used hammers to destroy the minarets of this structure. The attack is yet another in a string of attacks that have taken place on Ahmadiyya places of worship in Pakistan. Most recently, minarets of an Ahmadi Jamaat Khata on Jamshed Road in Karachi were targeted. But this isn't the only attack. As you look at these horrifying images, in December last year, police in Pakistan removed minarets of a mosque in Gujranwala in Pakistan's Punjab province. But as you look at these images, do keep in mind what's happening in Pakistan. Recently, a mosque was targeted by terrorists in Peshawar. There are many in Pakistan who believe that this too was the work of Pakistan's deep state, Pakistan's ISI. So, in a country that Pakistan's Finance Minister Ishaq Dar was created by Allah, he went on record to say not even Saudi Arabia was created by Allah, but Pakistan was created by Allah. In a place that Pakistanis believe was created by Allah, places of worship for Muslims are being targeted in Peshawar and in Karachi, in Gujranwala and several other parts of Pakistan. That is how safe Muslims are in Pakistan. But there's another big story I want to focus on, and this is where Pakistan, the question that's being asked, is Pakistan in terminal decline? Is Pakistan on the verge of implosion? Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has said his government will have to agree to the International Monetary Fund bailout conditions that, according to him, are beyond imagination. The International Monetary Fund has demanded that Pakistan, 1, raises taxes, 2, slashes subsidies on petrol, on diesel, on gas, on electricity. The International Monetary Fund has put one more condition. It wants to know the assets. It wants banks in Pakistan to know the assets of government servants, especially federal government employees of a certain rank and above. So the IMF has now said that Pakistan doesn't have any other option. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves as on date are down to just $3.1 billion, enough by some accounts for 3 weeks, by some accounts for less than 2 weeks of imports. In fact, letters of credit are no longer being issued. There are about 8,000 containers that are lying at various ports in Pakistan because no letter of credit is being issued. Year-on-year inflation, incidentally, hear this, year-on-year inflation has risen to a 48-year high in Pakistan, leaving the Aam Aadmi in Pakistan struggling for even the most basic food items. Situation is so bad in Pakistan as of now that the common man is unable to buy even atta. They're struggling for atta. So in some places there are government subsidy shops that are supposed to provide atta, ghee, sugar, dal, in some places rice, but that's not happening anymore. At least that is what people on ground are saying. We'll get you ground reports from Pakistan. Now, in a moment from now, we'll be joined by Tariq Fateh. He's an author and columnist who joins us from Canada. We have Sushant Sareen. He's a very well-respected strategic affairs analyst and a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. From Pakistan, I have Omar Altaf, who's a senior journalist who joins me on the show. Omar Altaf, I want to understand from you, what are these conditions that Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has described as virtually impossible, but he will have to agree, beyond imagination, he says?
I think the conditions regarding hiking the energy tariff, they are not acceptable to the Pakistani government, and raising gas prices as well, because these are some of the things which in an election year could really result badly for the incumbent government if they follow the IMF dictation and continue on raising the energy prices and removing all subsidies. So that would lead to another wave of inflation, and that could really dent their chances of re-election, because Imran Khan's popularity is soaring. So they are very skeptical of accepting the IMF program. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't have an option, because that is accepting IMF terms is the only option to avoid default, and obviously Pakistan wouldn't want to go in a situation where they default, because that's going to spell doomsday.
You know, because there are some within the Pakistani ruling dispensation that want elections to be postponed by another year for things to stabilize. But Sushant Sareen, would it be an exaggeration to say that Pakistan is on the verge of implosion at this stage?
I don't think it's an exaggeration. I think they're very much imploding already. And I'm not entirely sure if the IMF loan, even if it comes about, even if Pakistan does all the gymnastics and jumps through all the hoops that the IMF is asking it to jump through, I don't see how it's going to help these guys. And this program is only for the next 6 months. After 6 months, they'll probably have to go in for another IMF program because next year they owe a debt of almost $27 billion, which they have to pay. And this is over and above all the other expenses they'll have to incur. Now, the same people who have been giving them money last year, the year before last, and this year, do you think that the Saudis are again going to give them another $3-4 billion? The Chinese are going to give them that money. That money is not coming in. The bond market suggests that their bonds are worthless, the junk bonds even. So I think they'll have to go into another IMF program by next year, which will have even tougher conditions than what they are going through right now.
Okay.
So I don't see an easy glide path for the Pakistan economy in the foreseeable future.
But all eyes remain on Pakistan. Will Pakistan Army and ISI, will their budgets be cut? Will the Pakistan Army be cut to size? We'll be tracking that story very closely. That is all I have for you on India First this evening. Have a wonderful weekend.